Bahamas, let your voices blaze. Stand up, Bahamas, come on, let's save the base. God gave us this land, and this land we must save. Stand up, Bahamas, come on, let's save the base. A coalition's forming to stand up for what's right, to protect our Bahamas, and we're prepared to fight. Protecting our waters, protecting our land. Stop destroying our beaches and deepen all our sand. God gave us this land, and this land we must protect. So when I say save it, why should you object? We must protect the fauna, we must protect the flora. We must save it for our kids for a better tomorrow. Rise up, Bahamas, let your voices blaze. Stand up, Bahamas, come on, let's save the base. God gave us this land, and this land we must save. Stand up, Bahamas, come on, let's save the base. Let's save the base.
The content of Voice of the Bays radio show is the property of Save the Bays, Coalition to Protect Clifton Bay, and is intended for general information purposes only. The views expressed by the show hosts or their guests are their own, and not that of Love 97. To learn more about Save the Bays, please visit their website at www.savethebays.bs or find them on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or YouTube. Our thanks, Bahamas, for your support.
Rise up, Bahamas, let your voices blaze. Stand up, Bahamas, come on, let's save the Bays. Rise up, Bahamas, let your voices blaze.
Bahamas, your Save the Bays team is live on air once a week to give you your environmental update on your country, our beautiful Bahama land. Join us on Voice of the Bays radio show each Thursday on Love 97 from 5 to
Good afternoon, Bahama land. Good afternoon, my loved Bahamians throughout the Commonwealth of our beautiful nation. You are beginning to listen to the Voice of the Bays, The Environment Speaks. And as you can see from all that's happening recently, our environment under Save the Bays, we're speaking loudly and clearly and dramatically with respect to protecting these islands for future generations. Our seabed, our land, our coastal areas, etc. We are impacted really now by climate change, coastal erosion, and all of these things. And so we have to inform our nation as to what should be done. We have, every day there arises something in this country, and we have to address it when it comes to the rights of the people or the health of the people, the well-being of the people. And we're going to be dealing with two of those subjects this afternoon, maybe three. But we want to get into what is happening with the police force. Are they no longer capable of controlling the crime in the nation? And therefore, they have to call in the defense force to militarize the situation. Is it really that bad? So that aspect we have to address, and we may not have much time to address it. But then there is the issue happening in Grand Bahama. And that is going to be a hot topic for the next number of weeks with respect to the proposed cruise port in the eastern part of Grand Bahama, which seems to be an absolutely insane idea. I don't know who dreamed that up, what nightmare anyone had, other than the cruise company, which is designating it. Of course, it'd be nice for them, but it really has no benefit to the ordinary people. And then we have the situation here in Nassau, which we lament. So this afternoon is going to be a rather lamenting period as we put some information out there, deal with these different issues, and see if we cannot have a wise and sort of deliberate approach to these particular situations in our country. And so, first of all, my esteemed guest this afternoon, in fact, he is the most renowned lawyer in the country. And, you know, I say that without contradiction. I mean, there's some good lawyers here and judges and all of those. But Fred Smith, you know, he outshines them all.
Oh, Joe.
And well, you know, I got nothing to gain from you. So, you know, I can praise you if I want to. So we have Frederick Aaron Smith, QC, in the studios this evening. And we're going to be talking about the hellish nightmare that has happened to our beloved citizens as a result of the fire, the infernal happening in the city dump, and that is what it is. It is a dump which is eternally burning and just waiting to be ignited in tremendous flames. And what impact this has, what effect on our people, particularly their health. Fred, before I get you talking, I wanted to actually comment the Putcake Miller. And, he said something which actually I had anticipated, but when I found out that they were carting these people and putting them in a gymnasium, all of these families, I said, my God, how could they be so insensitive to the needs of these people? And as the Putcake said, Mr. Miller said, it is not the right setup for those people. Those people should be given every comfort, everything that they need without hesitation. They should get the most elaborate hotel rooms because of how they have been subjected to something that is not of their fault. We're not talking about a natural disaster. We're not talking about a hurricane. We're talking about something that's come about as a neglect of governments after government and the present situation as it exists. Address that a little bit, Fred Smith. Fred, good afternoon and welcome to Voice of the Bays, Our Environment Speaks.
Good afternoon, Joe. Thank you very much for having us on your show. It's always a pleasure to be sharing these kinds of educational moments with you. And I also have great regard and esteem for you, Joe, as chairman of Save the Bays. Joe and I have worked together for nearly 40 years in environmental issues, human rights issues, immigrant issues, and now you are the chairman of Save the Bays, and I was chairman, I think, last year. And I think that the issue at the dump falls squarely within many of the issues which Save the Bays agitates about. First of all, I'd like to extend my deepest compassion to everybody, as I know you do, who has been affected by the dump fire. The smoke and the pollution is toxic, it's hazardous. It has destroyed people's homes, their possessions, their belongings, disrupted their daily lives. It has just been catastrophic. And I want to emphasize that as far as I am concerned, it is criminally negligent, criminally neglectful of government after government to have allowed a situation to exist where this dump just continues to pose such a toxic and hazardous threat to the people of New Providence. It's not just the people in Jubilee or the people in Adelaide or the people in Clifton or the people where that smoke is blowing right now, because the smoke changes. It may generally be going in one direction, but the environmental degradation doesn't occur just in the air. It occurs in the water table that is being poisoned. It occurs in the poisoning of the atmosphere, in the destruction of homes, and in the disruption of people's daily lives. People have a right to clean air. They have a right to clean water. They have a right to a healthy environment. And it is an absolute disgrace that between the FNM and the PLP, going on now 50 plus years, that neither of those two parties who have been able to pass an Environmental Protection Act, have been able to create an Environmental Protection Agency, have been able to pass laws or create a regulatory body that has teeth, that is able to enforce, that is able to manage the environment, both in New Providence and throughout the rest of the Family Islands. And so I cry shame on every member of Parliament and every executive in each of the administrations, be it the FNM or the PLP, that they should have allowed a state of affairs to exist at the city dump, affecting thousands of people month after month after month for decades. And I know that Minister Dorset recently proudly announced that the government is about to pass the 2017 Environmental Act. Well, that's just pure, unadulterated hypocrisy. At the end of this government's term, for them to be talking about passing an environmental bill, when Save the Bays and other human rights organizations and other environmental organizations have been pressing, against the FNM, against the PLP, talking and promoting and encouraging every administration to pass an Environmental Protection Act. It's just a disgrace. Just like the Freedom of Information Act, at the end of the 5-year term, Fitzgerald and Perry Christie and the rest of you all are bringing a Freedom of Information Act on the eve of a general election after you've been hiding everything in secret for 5 years. And on top of that, they want to bring a spy bill. So all of our business, all of our private affairs would be known to all the politicians in government, but none of the affairs of government would be known to the ordinary citizen. So that's just Alice in Wonderland governance by this government. Not just this government. The FNM didn't pass the Freedom of Information Act either. An environmental act, now that the Bahamas is promoting itself and is selling second home, $35, $40, $50 million homes to foreign investors, now that New Providence is just growing beyond capacity, there's hardly any space to build anymore. As the family islands become developed, as our wetlands are reduced in number and size, as our developments affect reef and other marine areas, sensitive marine areas, as our grouper and our conch and other marine resources become depleted. I mean, we are growing exponentially. Yes, we're only 350 to 400,000 people, but we have over 5 to 7 million guests a year that come here. So they eat all our lobster, they eat all our conch, they eat all our fish. We import a lot of food. So even though we're a small country of citizens, we have, each month probably 1 to 1.5 million people. 700 to 750 to 1 million people a month in the Bahamas, eating, drinking, wasting. So waste disposal is extremely important to manage. And I don't understand how the people of Nassau have allowed, why they haven't demonstrated, closed down the streets, closed down Parliament, held FNM and PLP to account for allowing the city dump situation to continue to poison them. I agree with Brand McCartney. I agree with Juan McCartney. I agree with people. You all need to sue. You have over 1,500 lawyers in Nassau. How is it that no lawyers have been able to come together to act free, to act for a group of people, to bring an action for negligence and for criminal negligence against the people responsible for this dump? It's insane that in a community like New Providence, the situation with this inferno poisoning and killing and ruining people's lives should exist.
Fred, when we look at what has happened, in fact, it was probably just about a year ago, maybe less, when there was a massive demonstration against the city dump. At that particular point in time, it was really interesting because I remember Potcake, Mr. Miller, saying that, hey, look, all of those white people. And mind you, there was a whole kaleidoscope of every color in that group, thousands of people marching against the dump. At that particular point in time, I had a doctor on our program, and he delineated the dozens of carcinogens that are created when these materials are burned. I give the example to the public. We know, for example, let's take the example of marijuana. If you pick a marijuana leaf, when you pick it off the tree, if you analyze it, it has essentially about 5 chemicals. You light it up, it jumps to 400 chemicals because of the burning aspect.
Yes.
So can you imagine the dozens of all of these chemicals that we don't even know, that the hazardous things that are put in that dump and that they burn and what these people are breathing in? In fact, a doctor at that particular point in time said to me, he said, Joe Davil, he said, this is one hazardous situation. Down the road, we're going to have hundreds who are going to die of cancer, particularly those young people now who are breathing in these carcinogens, the pathogens, for example, that the body cannot assimilate. The body cannot metabolize, so it rests within the lungs, the heart, the various soft tissue, the cells of the body. He said even the masks, you have to be meticulous about what mask you wear, and I see a lot of people wearing masks out of that situation. And so who designated the type of mask that were given to those people? Because he said the ordinary masks do not keep out those chemical substances from being breathed in through those masks. So concretely, now let's say that I put it on the table right here now, that I want to see my government handle these people in a generous, kind, gracious, and compassionate manner.
As human beings.
As human beings.
They need to be.
They have been disrupted from their home. They cannot go
no
back
fault
there.
Of their own.
They have not been given the okay to go back. Some are going back without approval, which means that they're subjecting themselves to hazards.
They have lives.
They got lives. They got children.
They got
children.
their
For example, the
belongings.
Aquinas College has been let out. They haven't yet designated when they'll be back. When we landed in Freeport the other morning, when we got off that plane, even before we got off, we could hardly breathe.
Correct.
The eyes and the nose were burning. And people there were still, the porters were still wearing masks.
And when we got back to Freeport last night, my eyes were still burning throughout the whole night.
So for God's sake, my prime minister who claims that he cares for his people, you give an order to make sure that these people who have been disrupted, removed from their homes, are placed in comfortable surroundings, not in a gymnasium. And I agree with Mr. Miller again. He said it's like a children's playpen. For God's sake, these are our people.
Yeah.
I bet if they were white foreigners, Fred Smith, they would not subject them to that type of treatment.
Yeah.
But that is what is happening to our black Bahamians. We're being treated less than black slaves on the plantation when it comes to our rights and privilege in this country. So give a little bit of information as to what action these people can take in order to make sure that their rights are reserved, respected, and handled the way it should be.
Well, regrettably, this is not something that can be fixed overnight.
I'm talking about the people.
Oh, the people who are out right now? Our government should treat this as a national disaster.
And it is not it's not a natural disaster. No. It is a natural, man-made disaster.
And it's the government's fault. And it is perfectly acceptable in a situation like this for the government to use all of our taxpayers' money to help to give some succor to our brothers and sisters who have been so badly affected by this. No one should have a problem with that. They should be put in decent accommodations, not quick temporary fixes, but they should be provided with some long-term accommodation, because even when you don't see the smoke belching out like this with this inferno that's going on, there's still a lot of gas and there's still a lot of smoke pilfering out. It never stops, basically, smoking out there. So people, even if you don't see it, and you and I did so much, the protests against the toxicity and the hazardous waste
in Hawksbill
of all the industries there. Sometimes you didn't see any of the emissions.
No.
But the smell, the taste, and those invisible vapors were still poisoning people. So, this is going to take the people of New Providence to really come together, because that wind can turn and blow in any direction at any time.
Yeah.
For the people of New Providence to come together and to let the politicians know they should march on them, they should demonstrate, they should organize, they should protest, and they should also bring Supreme Court actions against the various ministers for misfeasance and malfeasance in public office. And I hate this idea of always appealing to the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister is not the be-all and end-all of the Bahamas. It is not in him that is vested all power. This is the problem. We keep, through Pindling, Sir Lyndon Pindling, through Hubert Ingram, and through Perry Christie, we keep investing maximum power in the office of the Prime Minister. Well, we have three branches of government, and this is educational. You've got your legislature, your executive, and your judiciary. And Parliament passes laws, and they ought to make the executive enforce the laws that we have. We have an Environmental Health Services Act, even though we don't have an Environmental Protection Act. We have a Planning and Subdivision Act. We have various statutes that will allow the executive and the regulatory agencies to take this seriously. But instead of doing that, we are focused on giving away crown land, giving away stamp duty, giving away customs duties, giving away all kinds of tax benefits that we would get from these developments, these foreign developments. And the people keep getting deprived because we don't resource our regulatory agencies to properly police and administer the acts that they perform. And so it's difficult for me to give, to comment on how to fix this problem right now. I mean, in Freeport, we've had industrial emission wastes. It took years for us to deal with it. You had to move school after school after school. Right now they need to move a lot of people the residents in Pinder's Point. The sand blasting that they do of all of the big oil tanks there at Borco. That black sand that they use blasts into people's homes, on their windows, and they breathe it, and it's really bad. So the issue of the environment is not just people saying, oh, protect the water, protect the air, protect the reef. The environmental issues affect people. They affect human beings.
Okay, Fred, hold on 1 second. We have a call on the line. Yes, go ahead.
Good afternoon. How are you doing today?
Very good indeed. A little bit sad for what the nature of our topic. Really, it distresses me. But go ahead.
I'm sad for that too, but it's not only happening in Nassau, it's happening on other out islands where we have the same dump issues.
Oh, God.
We're a country that's growing and multiplying. We need to get a hold of this, and we need to start recycling the garbage. People that, if government hires private individuals or on other islands, we need to separate the garbage. We need to start this in our schools, teach our children how to separate it. South Florida does it. Why can't we do it? You need to separate the garbage, so when it gets to the dump, you're separating the paper stuff that could go into recycling. You separate aluminum, metal, and you spring off other jobs from all of this. But no, we're going to see our islands by the mountains of garbage before you see the beautiful land and the beaches and all that. We need to get the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, Environment, all on board and stop this. Why are we talking about this every year? It's an ongoing thing. We have out islands that are having the same problem, that people are living in areas that dump smoke, the dump toxics is coming through them. They have to carry it to other islands. So why don't we deal with this as a nation, not as just Nassau? I'm sorry for them people in Nassau, but there are other islands that are having the same thing. And if we don't do something, we're going to be known as the islands of mountain of garbage, because we're living in a disposable world. It's not products that last forever. They break, it's cheap, you buy a new one and you throw the old one away. So just get on board. The nation needs to recycle. Let's start the recycling today. Put Parliament in together and recycle everything. There's jobs. We're looking for more jobs for different companies. All kind of jobs could spring up and multiply. So we need to change our thought of, we keep talking about this every year, about people having problem with smoke and the fires and all that. Why don't we start changing it? Why do we have to hire an outside entity to come into our country to control our garbage? I don't understand that. I'm a Bahamian. I could already think beyond that and know how to deal with this problem. We don't have to spend millions of dollars for outsiders to come here and tell us how to do our garbage. We need to recycle it. Whoever we hire in the out islands or in Nassau, they need to recycle it. They need to. When you put it out by the road, you put your bottles and your cans in one container. You put the papers and cardboards in another container. It's simple. Teach the young. Just start today. Don't wait till tomorrow, because guess what? Our mountains of garbage are continuing to grow, and they're going to be here full of toxins.
Oh, exactly. Thank you so much for calling. Very wise words, and I'm hoping that everybody is hearing those. Thank you for calling. And before we go to I don't know what I did with that, to the next caller, I want to, because Fred made allusion to the situation in Pinder's Point. And, we have two veterans there, Bertram Pinder and Shuffle Hepburn, who are now the progressive people trying to get the government sensitized to the fact that people are dying, continue to die as a result of cancer. And I just wanted, as I always get a chance to do, I was the one who instigated the movement of all of the schools out of that area. The Catholic Board allowed me to move Grand Bahama Catholic High School in 1988, and I went directly to Edward St. George and Sir Jack, and I said, every school in that area should be removed. And let me give you one statistic. In Catholic High School, the class of 1982 that had 98 students, within 10 years after we moved, and keeping track of those students, 14 had died, and 12 of those had died from cancer related to industrial pollution. And PAHO and WHO can tell us that there are no real hazards in that area? Come on. Even Edward St. George told me, admitted to me, that when they put down wells about 3 months before he died, he came to me and said, Joe, I should have listened to you a long time ago. He said, we sunk 14 wells in that vicinity, and everyone came up saturated with oil, all the way into going up on West Sunrise Highway in those particular settlements. So that whole area is a hazard to people's health and their well-being. We have another call on the line, but I want to give the numbers. Callers, please, 326-8255, 326-3633. I think the one you can remember easily is 322-5477. 322-5477. Out of Freeport, Grand Bahama, or any place we are calling from, you could call 351-6176. I will go to the next caller. Hello, are you still there? Hello? Skip, I think I lost that one. How do I stop that call? Hello, you on the line?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, please.
All right. This is Di, and I heard a very interesting conversation when you were quoting the doctor, who was the doctor I happened to have interviewed and had done a story with. So,
give me his name again, please. He was so good.
Arlington, he was super. He still is super. Dr. Arlington Lightbourne from the Wellness Clinic, office on Collins Avenue, just south of Doctor's Hospital. At any rate, so I went back and looked up what he said because I remembered how stunning it was. And he said the average sized person takes 24,000 to 28,000 breaths a day. We breathe the weight of a 10-year-old child in a 24-hour period. And as for 10-year-old children themselves, they take in even more air because their oxygen needs are much greater than that of an adult, and their symptoms might take years to manifest. Lots of effects, he said, take 20 years to develop. You can be 10 today, and then at 30 be diagnosed with cancer. How do you make the connection between the diagnosis with what's happening at the dump now? Think about all those people who live near the dump.
Oh, my God, Di, it is absolutely frightening.
That is a doctor saying that. How do you make the connection? The only thing you can do is exactly what that young man said who called in a few minutes ago. We have to wake up and start recycling. If one person like Sean Ingram at One Eleuthera Foundation can do it in a small area like South Eleuthera, where they are taking glass and cracking it up and making paving and counters and so forth, taking plastics, recycling them back to Nassau, taking cans, recycling them back through Ginny McKinney at Waste and Cans for Kids. There are ways. When we just have to stop saying we're going to continue doing it the way we did it because that's the way we always did it. You know what? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, it's broke.
It's broken, yeah. Thank you, Di, for calling in. Thank you. Have a pleasant good evening.
You too. Bye.
Okay. Hello, you're on the line?
Yes, good afternoon, sir, Mr. Darvo.
Yes, good afternoon.
My name is J.P. Michelson. I have a business called Solar Energy.
Yes.
And I was asked to call in.
Yes, go ahead.
I wasn't following your show, sir. So
Someone asked you to call in?
Somebody asked me to call in, yes.
Okay, you mean you have a statement to make, or are you calling in to find out something?
No, I gather you were talking about the situation at the Nassau dump.
Yeah, correct. We're lamenting that because it's something that should not have happened. It has been in the making for a long, long time. At the peak, at one peak last year, the fire was absolutely intolerable, and there was a massive demonstration. But since then, we had no concrete evidence of anything that was done to actually create the state-of-art landfill. Since you're asking this, I wanted to draw the public's attention to the fact that right there in Freeport, we have a state-of-the-art landfill. You could go anywhere around there and you could sit down, you can have a picnic, you can lay on the grass there, and you never hear a smell. There's never a fire there. It is the best in the Caribbean. So why can't Nassau send a team there to get the whole structure of that setup and duplicate it in Nassau, which should have had it 40 years ago?
Yeah, and I fully agree with you, and actually I've made that comment several times on air this week. I mean, I'm in Freeport quite often, and frankly, that is a landfill that is that's a landfill, not a dump.
Not a dump, no.
Properly managed. And they don't have fires because they've capped their methane buildup and siphoned it off in a controlled fashion a number of years ago. So I don't understand why we're always having to look outside of the country to actually...
Yeah. I mean, we're not smart enough to take care of garbage? I mean, what is that saying to us? We have so many well-educated engineers in this country. We could pay... I don't know. I get the impression that somehow, and I'm not labeling this government in that regard, but I think our politicians somehow, they get something under the table in giving it to foreign people. And I'm not saying any specific person, but that seems to be the level of corruption in this country. And that's why we can never get anything right. We only think that, if it's white and foreign, it got to be good, and then we could get something on the side. That type of corruption has to cease in this country.
The point I made this morning to some of the members of the media this morning in an interview was very simple. I said, we've had a foreign company there at the dump site called Renew Bahamas for 3 years. They were paid to do a job and didn't do it. They left, and guess who's holding the bag? The Bahamian people.
Exactly.
And this has got nothing, as I'm concerned, nothing to do with politics. This has everything to do with setting priorities. This dump site, this toxic dump site, is a priority. It is. And people say, how much money is it going to cost to remediate and sanitize? It's irrelevant what the cost involved is, because if we don't do it, the cost will continue to grow. People will continue to inhale this toxic smoke. And we were very fortunate on Sunday, very fortunate that no one lost their life, no houses were lost. But yes. Are we really going to wait?
Listen, no one lost their lives, but down the road, you can be very sure that dozens and dozens of those people, particularly the infants, will lose their lives as a result of what they had to breathe in before they were given some apparatus to filter the toxins and the pathogens that were all permeating the atmosphere. And this stuff that's still settling in the area, that does not go away. These elements are not biodegradable, and therefore they will sit there for ages and not biodegrade and go back into the soil as some neutral element. They will be there,
poison the water
and the water table will be poisoned. The atmosphere will still be poisoned. This is something that is a national catastrophe, and I am sad to know that our parliamentarians can walk around and strut around, and they can entertain, for example, in the midst of all of this, they entertain someone from Guyana. They should have canceled that, and they should have had strategic meetings to know how to deal with these people. I want to give one idea before we get back to another line, and also getting back to Mr. Smith, and that is that I hope, and if it's not already done, that all of those people who are affected, that they are being checked thoroughly by doctors and nurses, that there is a team of health specialists examining their people and actually getting some kind of baseline of their condition at this particular point in time, because our government, and you know, it's not Perry Christie's government, it's not whoever's going to win the election, but our government is responsible, and it will go on to the next government, because they have allowed this to be neglected. And it was interesting to find out that even Dr. Minnis made the announcement that both the F&M and the PLP are guilty. We're going to take another caller and then go to a break. Go ahead, you're on the line. Skibo, was that another one?
I would urge everybody who is affected to take soil samples, dust samples, smoke samples on a regular basis as this catastrophe is unfolding, because if there are any court cases, you will need to be able to have evidence of what you were poisoned by.
Water samples too, if you have wells, etc.
Yes, water samples, and you also need it when they say to you that nothing happened to you, that you can prove in subsequent years, and you can give it to your doctors or your medical
well, that's
treaters.
a situation that happened in Grand Bahama too, and they come and they go out to these people. Well, give us evidence. People are dying and already dead, and give us evidence and give us evidence. And even those that went through, and the thing is reprehensible about this whole situation is that the only references that we had and we saw, and I don't mind giving a name, Hartlyn Cooper, she called me to her dying bed about a week or so before she died. And she said, Mr. Dowell, look at all of my documentations. She didn't go to the RAND. She went to doctors in Florida because she had the financial wherewithal to do it. And she said, look at all of these. Everyone are pointing to, all of the doctors I had, to the fact that my cancer, my body, which is ridden with cancer, that beautiful, young, intelligent woman, she was one of the managers at the Burger King. She died as a result of pollution from the industrial area. One person is too many.
I agree.
Before they move those people out of that area. We're going to take a break, Skibo, and we'll be right back. You're listening to Voice of the Bays, The Environment Speaks, and we're speaking for you today, all of you.
Rise up, Bahamas, and let your voices blaze.
Bahamas, your Save the Bays team is live on air once a week to give you your environmental update on your country, our beautiful Bahama land. Join us on Voice of the Bays radio show each Thursday on Love 97 from 5 to 6 p.m. to hear the latest news on our 700 islands in the sun. Call in and let your voice be heard during the show. Calling from Nassau, dial 326.
Welcome back, Bahama land, and our beautiful and wonderful citizens of the archipelagic nation of the Bahamas. Remember, you could call us from Freeport all to the Bahamas at 326-8255, 326-3633. My easy number, I like easy numbers, 322-5477. Please call us in with your comments. Skibo, I think you need to clear some of these things here, because I don't know if there are people waiting on them or not. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're just tuning in, we're talking about this incredible, horrific disaster at the city dump, which will cause havoc in the lives and the well-being of people for a long, long time. And so call us in, give us some ideas that you may want to share with respect to how we can, going forward, we can deal with this situation expeditiously. The government actually, Mr. Smith, should give an undertaking that within 6 months, this thing can be done, will be done. If you have to hire 1,000 people to get it done, send 25 or 30 people down to Grand Bahama and see the state-of-the-art place there. When we take our environmental students there usually every year, and they're fish swimming around in the pools around there. The methane gas which is produced, it is channeled in a burning chamber, and you cannot even see it as it burns and goes off without affecting the environment.
Well, the simple fix is just to hire the company that's running the Port Group Limited and the foreign French company that are running it should just be hired to run a landfill and waste disposal site in New Providence.
You can imagine how much.
It's very simple.
The thing, my dear Bahamians, the thing that bothers me is the fact that the IDB gave this government something like $20 million. That is what
Who
I've seen.
thief that money?
So where is
Who
that?
thief the 20
Where
million?
is that 20 million gone? That was supposed to produce a state of
Commissions to
the art.
specialists, commissions to agents,
Oh, my God.
commissions for consultants,
Okay.
salaries.
I think we got all sorts of calls here.
Well, we have a basic problem in the Bahamas, and that is
Hello, are you on the line? Oh, you're okay. You're trying to clear.
while
Go.
he's talking, while
Yeah,
he's
okay.
doing that, we have a fundamental issue in the Bahamas, and that is that our system of government has collapsed. It was designed to manage a colony by an imperial colonial government from London, and we are now a nation. The Bahamas is not just New Providence. We're a family of islands, an archipelago of islands, and we should decentralize governance. We should change our tax system. We should stop vesting absolute monarchical, autocratic power in the office of the Prime Minister. We have to find a way of empowering, as we tried to do under the FNM with the Local Government Act, what should be done under the Freedom of Information. There are so many ways we can change governance in the Bahamas so that people are empowered and government is decentralized, and we go back to basics and fundamentals, and we really we need to operate a blue and a green economy, and to rethink the future of the Bahamas. This political environment that we have, in which politicians pirouette in Parliament or on the stages left, right, and center, and hurl abuse at each other and score political points, that has to end. We need to deal with human issues.
Okay, hold a second. Hello? Okay, Mr. Fred.
Yeah.
One of the things, this type of system that we're in, it is a total disgrace to the citizenry of this country. Tomorrow is the 10th of March. No, tomorrow is what? Well, in 2 days, let's say. Today is the 8th, right? 8th of March or 9th? 8th of March. So in 2 days, it's going to be the 10th of March. Then in 1 month, it'll be the 10th of April. Then in another month, it'll be the 10th of May. So basically 60 days hence, we have to have a general election. And we don't know for sure.
That's what I'm saying. Our whole system of governance has collapsed. And I'd like to just address another issue while we're on that subject, because it directly impacts on how perverse we exist in the Bahamas. I understand that the Prime Minister has been celebrating and patting himself and his other ministers on the shoulder for having signed some kind of agreement with a cruise ship facility to have a private cruise port on the east end of Grand Bahama. Now, nobody in Grand Bahama knows where it's going to be. No one was consulted. We don't know whether it's going to be on private land or crown land. We don't know what concessions are or aren't going to be given. How much tax giveaways are going to happen? How much crown land is going to be given away? We have a local government act. We have an East End District Council. Mm-hmm. Have they been consulted? How will this affect the thousands of licensees in Freeport who survive from the tours, the cruise ships that come in, the taxi drivers, the bus drivers, the tour operators, the restaurants, the bars, David Wallace's beach concession, East End tours, the jet ski operators, the banana boat operators, the vendors up and down the beach that sell the T-shirts and sell the beads they make. We continue to operate a system of government where the office of the Prime Minister behaves in secret like a dictatorship and makes decisions without reference to the people most affected. Same thing with the dump. Same thing with the Freedom of Information Act. Same thing with the spy bill. It's just a complete breakdown and failure to understand that the Bahamas belongs to the Bahamian people who live throughout the Family Islands. And this is a problem that Save the Bays has been addressing from the time it was created, and we've been addressing from before through Save Guanaqui, Save Harbor Island, Save San Salvador, Save Grand Bahama, all these organizations that have existed, is we lament and we resist and we decry these continuing heads of agreements, just like Bahamas, these anchor projects whereby the government sits in its office in Nassau at the office of the Prime Minister. It gets bedazzled like some, native Indian that Columbus discovered 500 years ago, and they gave them a couple of shiny beads, and suddenly the Indian was grateful. Every time these foreign developers walk in to the office of the Prime Minister, and they shake they show the greenbacks, and they say they're going to do all kinds of things, and they show them glossy brochures, the politicians fawn over themselves, fall over them, trip over their own feet to try and give the Bahamas away. And these heads of agreements, these anchor projects, are riddled with opportunities for corruption. They are secret. They don't consult the people who are most affected. And so right now in Grand Bahama, I know there's a large movement that's coming together, which I'm part of, and which is, it's an organization that's being formed to try and prevent this cruise port from being built out east. Nobody knows. Today we were online to each other trying to find out where exactly is it to be built. And someone sent some pictures around, and you should see the beautiful, pristine beaches, that area out by Sharp Rocks. I mean, I don't understand how a politician in Nassau sitting in the office of the Prime Minister, or you, Perry Christie, and any of your ministers, and Dorset, and Obi Welshcombe, and all the rest of you all who sell the Bahamas out constantly, have the gall, the audacity, the effrontery to disrespect me as a citizen of Grand Bahama and Joe Darville, who've lived there for decades, and to think y'all can just come and tell us what's going to happen on our island. It's my damn island. It's not yours.
Listen, Fred. One of the things that I think the group that's together fighting this, they're fighting it on the financial scene. But there is an environmental aspect which is absolutely frightening, nightmarish. You know why? Because any place out there, you talk about this long, almost 7-mile beach area, that is pristine. It is a place that people can go and you could be out there all day long and no one is there.
Is that where it is?
And somehow some cruise ship entity came across this, and all of a sudden now they want to capitalize on it. They want to destroy our environment, and away from, out less than a quarter mile from those sandy beaches is the magnificent, pristine coral reefs. So how the hell are they going to get ships in there close enough without devastating coral reefs, without creating
This is the same thing Obi Welshcombe and his crowd did in Bimini. They're going to rape the reef. They're going to destroy the mangroves. They're going to dredge out all of the wetlands on the inside. They are going to destroy the environment. Why, Obi Welshcombe? I hope nobody in Grand Bahama or Bimini votes for you, because you and your cohorts have destroyed the environment. This is what people need to understand. We're coming to an election. This is not a political radio show, but people have to understand the power of their vote. These people who are in power have abused their power. And the dump is a perfect example. They've been in power for 5 years, and now you're being poisoned by this inferno of toxicity and hazardous waste. How is it possible that this can happen? And they want to pass a spy bill to get into all our private business? And they won't give us a Freedom of Information Act? But they want to keep poisoning us? And they want to sell all our patrimony, give away all our crown land, destroy the environment? You people need to retire and go find somewhere else, go fish somewhere if you can find any damn fish.
Fred, let's look at the topography of that area. You have probably about a mile and a half out, you have the deep ocean. And then you have all these panorama of coral reefs. Then after that, coming in close to the shore, you have the grassy area where the turtles and the bonefish and all of these feed, all of these animals.
Yeah.
They don't know anything about this, you know.
I don't.
They have never.
Christie know how to swim. Does Obi Welshcombe never been in the water? Any of them have any snorkels? They've ever dived on snorkeling?
They've never been.
The beauty of the Bahamas, much of it is under the water.
Let me finish this. So then again, you got the deep ocean, then you got the shallow, getting shallower, and then you got all of these beautiful coral reefs. Then inside the coral reefs, you got the grassy area for turtles, bonefish, other fish, and then you got the shoreline. And because of the soft nature of that coastal area, you got embankments that allow the water to flow over, and then on the inside you have mangroves. They don't know what's there.
No idea.
And how could the hell they can come and destroy that
Destroy
beautiful
an economy, destroy the environment.
You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ecosystems there that they would have to dredge through in order to be able to come in there. And you know something? They're going to say, well, it's going to be to the benefit of Bahamians. Baloney. It is the benefit of the cruise line.
Because they will have their own souvenir shops.
Exactly.
They'll have their own bars, their own restaurants, their own entertainment facilities, because they'll say, well, the Bahamian ones, they're always fighting on the beach. We don't want the straw vendors. The hair braiders are annoying the tourists. We don't want this, that, the other. There will be no Bahamian, there will be no Bahamians working there other than cleaners, towel, servants, etc. We have given the Bahamas away to foreigners. A lot of people say I only defend foreigners. It's completely the opposite. I want a Bahamas that invites foreigners, but I want my home to be properly maintained as I am inviting people in to be my guest. So this is the problem. We have everything upside down. We need to change the governing structure of the Bahamas. Whether it's PLP or FNM, all these damn politicians have been a disgrace to the Bahamas.
We have, for example, to travel from that particular area to get into Freeport proper, it's probably between 35 and 40 miles, which means that those people are not going to be inclined to disembark that ship or leave that beach area and to travel into Freeport, which means that the Freeport area and the rest of Grand Bahama, the western Grand Bahama, will not profit economically from that development.
They'll say in the short term it is because we're gonna dredge, and we need to build, and we need to buy concrete, we need to buy aggregate, we need carpenters, we need masons, we need all these people to do it. But after those jobs are finished, that's it. It's a one hit economy. That's it.
Let's talk a little bit about consultation. There has been 1 or 2 meetings with the people with this organization of which you're a part, and I'm a part as well, in Freeport. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend the 1 or 2 meetings that were had. I was told by a member of that group that they were told by Mr. Baltron Bethel that the Prime Minister is aware of the people's concerns. Now, hold on, don't come in here. So does that mean that they're considering that consultation? Because it's not consultation. They were invited by the group to come there.
Yeah.
A consultation has to be orchestrated, initiated by the government.
That's right.
To come to the people, to talk to them, to invite them in, to tell them what the plans are before anything is sealed and done. So all the Prime Minister and the government is doing is opening up for a judicial...
rest assured that this project is going to be judicially reviewed.
Oh, yeah.
I know Wendell Jones, he says all I do is judicial reviews to destabilize
there isn't
the
one
government.
business person I know in Freeport who is in agreement with this.
Yeah. It's going to destroy the Freeport economy. I don't understand how.
Freeport is already
Freeport
dead.
Harbor and the Port Authority could have, Hutchison had a monopoly on all all ports on the island of Grand Bahama. How they got that is another story. However, why is it that they gave it up? Why has the Port Authority given up its rights to run a cruise ship harbor down there? Who is getting what benefit from this? This is the problem with having a Freedom of Information Act. All these deals are done in secret in the office of the Prime Minister with the foreign developers. You don't know what is happening ever. So our country is being sold out, crown land being given away, taxes are being put in abeyance, people are being given tax vacations, so that we don't even have the money to put up these poor people that are affected by the dump in decent accommodation because we can't afford it. Because we keep allowing people who are building at Albany, or people who are building out at Nygaard Key, or people who are building in Guana Key with the Discovery Bay people, all these big developments, we give all our taxes away, we give our crown land away, we don't merge them into our society, into our economy. We keep them exclusive with walls, and Bahamians can't go in. You can only be servants in there. And we just give our country away. We have to consider changing our form of governance in the Bahamas.
Fred, there is one situation which I call hypocritical, and I hope I am proven wrong. You know, the people in eastern Grand Bahama, they have been without running water for eons of time. Then all of a sudden, in the last 6 or 8 months, they're digging all of these holes, pipes, laying pipes.
But before every election,
and now they're saying about, oh, how wonderful we are to the eastern Grand Bahama. We're giving them water, running water. And I know it was not that, and I was waiting to see what was the intent. And that is probably the intent. They were preparing for the cruise port.
Oh, my God.
So it was not for the benefit of our local Bahamian people.
No.
Isn't that sad?
It is. It is, Joe. I mean, I complain a lot about the breakdown of the rule of law in the Bahamas, but we have to free our minds from this old slavish colonial mentality of simply worshiping the politicians at the top all the time. The office of the Prime Minister is in effect a dictatorship, even though it's not on paper, but the office of the Prime Minister has such power vested in it because the legislature, Parliament doesn't hold it in check. It's only the courts that have to some extent tried to balance the power, and that is why organizations like Save the Bays and Re-Earth and Grand Bahama Human Rights Association and Save Guanaki, all of these environmental and human rights organizations that people often criticize, and they're alleged to be destabilizing the government and accused of subversion and money laundering and everything else. These organizations exist to try and force the executive branch of government to abide by the laws that are passed by Parliament, and to encourage Parliament to pass modernized laws trying to create a better Bahamas for the human beings that live here. Because the environment is part and parcel. We need a clean, a healthy, and a fertile environment to survive in. So the environment and human rights are integrally related. And the politicians, please, you all are human beings as well. You all are going to die from cancer too if you're not careful. You all need to please pay attention to human rights, environmental rights, and people's needs at the very basic level. Stop worrying about what's in my email or Joe Darville's email, Mr. Fitzgerald and Mr. Fred Mitchell. Stop trying to pass the spy bill. Stop trying to accuse people who are committed to bettering the Bahamas of being subversives or destabilizers. Understand that we are trying to make a better Bahamas, just like you say and perhaps mean that you are. But all of our politicians on the FNM and PLP side need to take a step back, go back to basics, decentralize governance in the Bahamas, and find a way that we are dealing with these very basic human issues, like having a dump that works.
Yeah. Well, listen, we have only about 2 minutes left, Fred, and I want to read something from a great friend of mine. He is what I call a prophet for all times, Edian Farquharson out of Grand Bahama. He said, "We are captive in a continuum of fire and potential disease, obliteration. Witness the following: Borco, within hundreds of yards of millions of flammable petroleum products right under the noses of the residents. Borco's history, pollutants causing schools to relocate. Yet we are persuaded by PAHO that we have no need for immediate concern. The Otec nuclear base in Andros, where Bamsey is. The burning dump. Fear, the greatest pollutant ever. False expectations appearing real. Good news," he says, "we have retained some green space in the Bahamas. Bad news, we overpopulate New Providence and daily ingest carbon dioxide, carcinogens, fumes from old motor vehicles. We are all guilty as charged because we are selectively if not totally confused and overwhelmed by systematic rot, as you're saying. Dreams after the manner of this expert from a poem. A dream deferred by Langston Hughes. What happens to a dream deferred? Will it dry up like a rays in the sun? Will it fester like a sore and run? Or will it sag like a heavy load? Or will it explode? Dear friends, he ends, the time bomb is ticking away. Have we fallen on a petard fashioned by our own inaction and indifference? My beloved citizens of the Commonwealth, one minute, I'll be done. Those of you who have been affected and you have children, have your children checked carefully. Take them to a doctor. If a doctor is not provided wherever they're housing you in some dumpy place, do not. Oh, one other thing that it was mentioned by Mr. Miller, and that was that some of the people were willing, if they were put in a respectable place, that they would pay half of the cost. Do not do that. The government is responsible to pay full costs for your relocation until your environment is fit for you to return. You do not need to pay anything in that regard. And take your children, if they have not provided doctors and nurses, take your children to be examined, even if they have to go through a cleansing with oxygen, etc., to get anything that might have accumulated in their lungs. You've been listening to the Voice of the Bays. The Environment Speaks. We're always concerned about our beautiful Bahamas and our people. God bless you. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you again in 1 week. Thank you, Fred, for being on.
Thank you very much,
always
Joe.
Exciting.
Our beautiful Bahama land. Join us on Voice of the Bays radio show each Thursday on Love 97 from 5 to 6 p.m. to hear the latest news on our 700 islands in the sun. Call in and let your voice be heard during the show. Calling from Nassau, dial 326-8255. Calling in from Freeport, use 351-6175. You can also listen to the show streaming online.